tough at the end there. P6, good job though.
Yeah, sorry guys, as soon as I backed off from the Sainz, just totally lost the tyres and couldn't recover it again.
Yeah, okay.
Just dropped like a stone.
Be some interesting learning in there.
While Hamilton is having one of his strongest non-title winning seasons, George Russell is still suffering from second season fatigue. 6th place indicated another weekend in which he was not quite at Hamilton's level, and being nearly defeated by an AlphaTauri is not acceptable in a Mercedes, no matter who is driving. Lando Norris also set him up nicely while cutting through the field in a season that Russell admits has been a catastrophe. But his season hasn't only been a catastrophe on track, as other drivers are now pointing fingers to Russell, stating that he's taking it too far while racing. After the Mexican Grand Prix, drivers were pointing out that Russell is driving more dangerously every week and keeps moaning about other drivers on the radio. Let's dive in and find out what others, and Russell himself, are saying about his driving this season. George Russell claimed his Formula 1 Mexico Grand Prix was dictated by tyres, as he struggled for race speed for the second consecutive race after pulling off to deal with concerns. In Austin, the Mercedes driver had to slow down to save fuel, and in Mexico he had to slow down to control soaring brake temperatures after spending several laps trying to pass Carlos Sainz. When he was able to press harder on both instances, his tyres refused to respond. In Mexico, he finished 6th, losing out to Lando Norris in the final laps while just holding off Daniel Ricciardo. On the other hand, Hamilton finished 2nd, so who is there to blame, the car or the driver? George filled us in on what he thinks was the problem. It was just a race dictated by tyres once again, he said when asked about his afternoon. The car felt really strong, I was right behind Carlos, just couldn't quite make the overtake. But we had to back off because my brakes were overheating, as they were for many drivers. As soon as I backed off, I totally lost all the temperature in my tyres and could never recover it. It was like driving on ice for the last 15 laps, and a pretty miserable feeling, and very lucky to finish P6. Russell stated that the upside was that he knew why he lost performance. It's never fun when you're the defending driver on the back foot, he noted. Again, just really struggled throughout that race with the tyres, and it was pretty clear as soon as I backed off, I lost all the grip and I couldn't recover it. I'm not too concerned because I know the reason for it. But it's been 2 race weekends in a row for 2 different reasons. Last week was the fuel, and I lost my tyres because I backed off to manage the fuel. This weekend it was the brakes. That's at least some clarity. Russell also stated that the revised package Mercedes debuted at the US Grand Prix performed excellently in Mexico. We were strong here last year. We qualified on the front row, he said. Probably should have had 2 cars on the podium last year, so it's definitely performing well. But this weekend has been a weekend about tyres, as it has been for everyone. Yesterday was a total surprise for many teams, for good or for bad. I'm hoping Brazil won't be that sensitive. But that wasn't everything that was negative about Russell's weekend, as the other drivers had some harsh words for the Briton. With Sainz pointing out his mistakes and McLaren suggesting Russell would do anything for points at this stage of the season. But Toto Wolff believes McLaren's message to their driver in Mexico was, "Don't crash, we need those points," after warning Lando Norris that George Russell was all or nothing. Starting 17th on the grid to Russell's P8, Norris outpaced his rival throughout the 71 laps of the Mexican Grand Prix. Norris pushed his way up to 6th behind Russell by passing Alex Albon, Oscar Piastri and Daniel Ricciardo. "We know what Russell is like, he's all or nothing, so you just have patience with him," was the message from the McLaren pit wall. Norris showed little of that as he looked around the outside of the Mercedes driver all over the back of Russell's rear wing. But Russell blocked that off only to go a touch too deep. That allowed Norris to make a switchback maneuver, with the McLaren driver quickly hogging the racing line and shutting off any option for Russell to battle back. Wolff was asked about the message and whether he believed it was a gesture of respect for his driver. "I think that these two have probably had that race situation hundreds of times in their life, so they will have known what to do," he went on to say. "I think it was more of a message like, 'Don't crash, we need those points.'" Russell's efforts on Sunday were hindered, according to the team manager, by tyre troubles, with the Briton chasing Carlos Sainz before being forced to back off as his tyres began to overheat. Russell, however, was unable to restore grip after cooling the rubber, and therefore lost pace and a place. "I think we need to understand what actually happened to George, because he was pushing very strong behind Sainz, but so did Lewis," he said. "I think probably the killer was backing off, and that is also a theory that the tyre just dropped and he wasn't able to revitalize it." At the time, Russell was all over the back of Sainz's rear wing in Mexico, racing for position and maybe a podium, but he couldn't get past. After attempting to pass the Ferrari for 12 laps, the Briton vented his anger over the radio and accused Sainz of moving under braking. That is a no-no in Formula 1 because it may lead to a massive accident. Therefore, the stewards will instruct the teams to warn their drivers before taking action if it persists. Sainz, on the other hand, is sure that he did nothing wrong. "I was moving once and right before braking, which is what the rules allow," he told the media in Mexico. "You cannot move under braking, but you can move right before braking, and that's what I'm doing." The Ferrari driver feels that is a routine complaint made by Russell in an attempt to get his rival in trouble with the stewards, but he isn't the only one who uses such methods. He simply does it the most at the moment, which shows the struggles Russell has at the moment. "I think it's the same as always when you're behind. You open the radio, you complain, see if the guy in front gets a warning or a 5-second penalty because it benefits you," he added. "But I think it's the same. Almost everyone does it. George does it a lot." Although Ferrari started first and second at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, it was Red Bull driver Max Verstappen who led after turn 1, pushing past Sainz and then pole setter Charles Leclerc. While the Monegasque driver managed to finish on the podium, Sainz finished 4th and said Ferrari lacks the race pace to compete with Red Bull. "It's been the same case the whole year," he said. "The whole year we can fight them in quali, we can beat them in quali, but then comes the race, 2 or 3 tenths, sometimes 1, sometimes 4 tenths of pace, sometimes 6, it depends on the track. It's the main weakness of the car and where we're focusing for next year. I don't think we struggled with tyre deg, we just struggled with race pace. Looking at the pace that Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton had, it was honestly a matter of time before they finished ahead or in front," he explained. "They simply are a lot quicker than us in race pace. We kind of expected going into the race that they have some extra pace in there, and we had to manage a lot of temperatures. I had a weird stint on mediums and I struggled with that front tyre that was grained almost on the formation lap, so we'll have to take a look at that. Once we put the hards on, I think we were just following the pace of the car." However, after Ferrari outscored Mercedes on the day, Mercedes is only 22 points ahead of the Ferrari team in the Constructors' Championship, and Russell is now 15 points behind Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in the Drivers' Championship. So, what are your thoughts on the situation? Is Russell whining too much to distract us from the faltering performances in recent races? And what about his dangerous driving? Is it all just a coping mechanism to try and score as many points as possible? After all, he's placed 8th in the drivers' standings in the 2nd or 3rd best car at most tracks. Could he recover from the slump in the upcoming races? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and whilst you're down there, let us know your top 3 for the upcoming weekend. We'd love to see some wild guesses from our viewers. As always, like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for daily F1 news.